So today is my second installment of thankfulness, appreciating the things that we have instead of always coveting the things that we don't have. And I think it's suitable for this week, and I think it's suitable for life if we can manage to be that disciplined to remind ourselves. But, most of us aren't, so just for a couple of days, I wanted to dip into palettes that I own. They're very popular palettes, so I'm hoping you might own them too, and just showing you how I might use them, being one hooded and two crepey. And today we're going to do the Urban Decay. I bought this palette when it first came out. In fact, I was at that Sephora when the doors opened. Well, no, like 2 hours after the doors opened. They were sold out. I was so disappointed because I was just craving coppers at that period in my life, and the fact that this came out was like, yes, okay, I'm right. So I swatched some of the colors in here, and then I went down to the MAC store a few doors away and bought a couple of singles. Now, as it happens, the things that I got from MAC were in fact much more saturated and brighter or deeper, as the case may be, than this. So I'm kind of not sorry about that, even though I in fact never use the singles either. I always wish that there's a couple of colors that are the opposite of what are going on here for balance, and this just doesn't have it. So I coveted it when I finally got it, as per, not usual, but not uncommonly. I used it a couple of times, and then I was like, I don't know, maybe I should bring it back. And I figured the first like 4 colors were neutral enough that they'd be somewhat useful, but I still never really open it up. So today is opening it up again, the Urban Decay Heat Palette. We're taking you for a ride. This is the look I got. If you want to see how I got there, and you want to hear my relaxing, droning voice, no. If you want to see how I got there, keep watching. It's been a long time since I've looked at this. This was one of the palettes that I just had to have, and it sold out immediately at my Sephora. When I got this, I found that if you're a makeup artist and you are given a white girl, a brown girl, a black girl, and your directive is to give them the exact same look, you could do that with this. They would not look like they're not wearing the same thing. But if you're just a regular person and you're buying this to use on yourself, I don't see that there's enough variety in here to get different looks. It's just one look at different intensities. But I kept it because these neutrals seemed like they were useful, but I never use them. So continuing on with the idea of using the stuff that you have, I'm going to start with this one. There's a little foundation, and I haven't powdered them, and this is sticking to that quite nicely. So I'm just going to kind of feel around, not my eyeball, but my bone. It's a little darker than I thought it might be. And again, looking for the orbital bone. And then kind of all over the place from there. I have no idea what I'm going to do. It's just about using what you have. I guess I'll go in with the next neutral. Kind of outer edge it here. These colors are reading so similar. So here's the swatches of these two colors. They're so similar, I'm not really sure there's reason for both of them in this palette. But, I'm not reviewing this since this came out a million years ago. So I'm just going to take my favorite first brush and blend. I taped up the back of my mirror because I was wondering if part of the reason the colors are changing so much on my videos was because the camera was picking up that mirror and adjusting for it. Lately, we've had cloudy weather and some rain, so the light just changes a lot. Not the camera, but just because the clouds are going in and out. Yeah, creepy lid approved. So the next place to go is in these dark browns, and one is just a little cooler and one is a little more red, but their depth is, it looks to be about the same. So I'm going to go ahead with the more red. Why not? And just buff it in a little bit, gentle hand, because I don't like to go too dark. And let's see how it works in the crease. I'm going to take a fluffy brush and some translucent Laura Mercier and do a little blending because, I don't know, I don't feel like they're layering on top of each other incredibly well. I just want to smooth it out. But believe me, if we're going to compare this to the Melt, this is 1,000 times better. I wouldn't say it's not blending on its own. I'm just saying when I added that darker color, it felt a little bunchy. You know, it's funny, when I bought this palette, I thought the story was really very, very copper, and I was kind of craving copper. But so far, I would say I'm getting a fairly neutral look out of it. It's just neutral warm. Now, I guess we're going to have to go in with some shimmers. So here are the shimmers. This is where the copper or the copper comes into play. And this is the color I'm going to do. I'm beginning to see why I really don't use this palette. I just feel like there's not enough variation between the colors to do anything. It could be one shade all over the lid with a little bit of shine. But it is what it is. Let's go into some lining. I happen to have this here, so we can do some lining on the lid. I just feel that I need a little bit of variation of color here. The powders themselves are fine. They blend nicely. I did feel that once I got that third color in there, it was bunching up a teeny bit, but that was remedied with a big blender. They don't have a splotchy look, like they're skipping, which is great. A little more blending. I'm going to do this on the brow bone to just kind of bring the color down, especially on this side. It's a good skin color for me. And just looking in the mirror here to see that everything looks balanced, and I would say it does. So, my goodness, I think that's the first time I smiled. I don't know why looking at these old palettes makes me really tense. Isn't that strange? I want to do my eyebrows, and I will be right back. I've been trying out this brightener from Becca for my under eyes just to, give me a little bit of help in that area. And just a smidge. Years and years ago, Bobbi Brown had a product like this. I think she sold it as a single and as with a concealer, and I had one in Bisque, and it did about the same thing, but I just felt like it was so creamy. It was too creamy. I wanted it to kind of sink in a little bit. and I think I eventually tossed it. But it's pretty much the exact same product, exact same color, exact same consistency. And I've tried this a couple of times and it does make a difference. It just adds a brightness to the inner eye area to compensate for the darkness. It does not work in the same way that an orange would work, but I've tried those as well and they don't work at all because the concealer I put on top of something that's orange takes on that orangeness. And even if you go with a concealer quite a bit lighter, which you should, it will keep that orange undertone. That's just my experience. It's incredibly possible that I'm not applying it correctly, but you know, that was my experience. The brush I got the other day at the drugstore, it's an eyeshadow brush, but I thought it might be good for under the eyes. But I don't know. It's possible my under eyes are kind of dry. I don't know. I think I continue to think that the fingers are probably the best way to go. It's really cold, so I'm just going to warm up my fingers a little bit and go in with a final like melt in. And just kind of lay the finger on. Instead of, when I find if I go tap, 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 it kind of lifts and replaces, and then I have kind of empty spots under my eyes. Not a great look. A little bit of Torrid on the cheeks. This is the one I got at the sale, and it's it's a unique color for me. Kind of an orange, but not a scary orange. Here's the shadow. As you can see, it all kind of morphed into each other. It's not that the progress from one color to another isn't pretty and the overall look is pretty. It's just I think the palette itself is kind of limited, but it works well with the crepiness. It blended fine. There's nothing wrong with the quality of these. They are powdery, but crepey approved. Super Cindy from Charlotte Tilbury. I don't know. I mean, it's not my usual thing. I feel like my eyes are pretty warm and my lips are kind of nude warm, which is outside my comfort zone, but I think it's a perfectly lovely look and perfectly acceptable for Thanksgiving dinner. So the Renaissance was more of those berry colors, which I think are so great in fall, but a lot of people don't like those colors. They're much more comfortable with something warm. And I think this gets you here without being more aggressively orange like from my Viseart palette. That's aggressively orange. Or the Ginger Red palette is also far more aggressive in its orange. So this is more like a little whisper of orange on the lids. And I think perfectly lovely for the holidays. If you wanted to, I don't know, punch it up just a little bit, maybe take a khaki pencil and try to get a little bit of push-pull between the orange-ish and the green-ish. I think orange and green are pretty swell together. I want to thank you for spending some time with me. I know this week and the weeks to come are busier and busier. Our days feel shorter and shorter, and many of us feel like we're being pulled from both ends and can't possibly get everything done. So I'm so glad that you came here and spent a little time here, and I hope I've given you a 15-minute reprieve from the busyness of your life. And that's going to be it for me today. I hope you come again, and until then, I'm wishing you a fantastic day.